nuance of what I was saying, and just populated the CDs with the music. Specifically, I mean, this goes right down to, like, where are the chord changes, you know, what instruments do we use, what kind of song do we use, what's the tempo. I mean, everything is perfectly built around the lecture.
Yeah.
And there's really, as far as I know, nothing else like that where somebody in this metaphysical field has worked with such a high-profile musician and put something like that together. So it is available on my site. It's $39.99 if you just want the 3 lectures with the music in the background. It's $59.99 if you include 2 more CDs, which is all the music. Julie, you haven't actually heard that yet.
No,
but
I'm going to get it.
the first 3, but yeah, you can buy the music separately for $29.99. You get the 2 together, which is less. But it's a great way to help serve this work that we're doing. It's the primary thing we're offering to people as a way to be able to fund our operations because it keeps our overhead low. You know, we don't really have to do much except keep the website running. So my film producer calls it a license to print money. But it's so worth it. It's premium content, and we put an enormous amount of time into it, and it basically represents what I feel to be the most important statement I'm here to give humanity.
Exactly. And as I said, it is very profound, very life-changing, and it puts all of the pieces together so that you can understand it. The message is outstanding, and I urge everybody to just go and get that. You will not be disappointed.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what that message is and really answer your question, because I don't want to just sound like I'm promoting a product without really saying why it matters. Essentially, what we are learning through science is that the ancient mystery teachings have long described that there is a harmony between the observer and the observed. In other words, the illusion of separation is just that. It doesn't exist. There is only unity. There is no I and you. There's only we, which is actually a oneness. There's no separate identity. There's no separate identity between physical matter and yourself. So on some level, you are the chair you're sitting on. You are the walls you're looking at as you listen to these words. The reality that you perceive as yourself is a distortion of the way the universe really works because, in fact, you are part of this living, omniscient intelligence that is largely shielded from your conscious mind. It's very important to draw a distinction, and this is what I do in my article, The Deeper Secret, in David's blog, which describes why a lot of the law of attraction stuff is still a partial teaching and not a completely enlightened teaching, is that your ego is not God. You know, if you're using a strict law of attraction modality, what you're saying is, because my ego wants this, it must be what God wants for me, and therefore I'm going to say that I want this, and then it's going to happen, and I'm going to get it.
Right.
But what I try to point out to people is that until you defragment your personality, which means deal with traumatic issues that happened earlier in your life, your ego may be desiring particular outcomes that are not in alignment with what's your purpose on this planet. And that's the only other thing I have on the site that's a musical product with voice behind it is called What Is My Purpose? And the reason why I put that on there, it's a reading from my source, which you can read about on the site, because I do intuitive readings. It's the one question everybody would call and want to know, because I stopped doing readings in August 2005. I had 500 clients for the last 7 years before that. And everybody asked the same thing. It got to be like a running joke after a while. And it's like, and I would feel bad because people are calling me and asking me to tell them what their life's purpose is. I'm saying, well, it's your life. I mean, what do you want to do with your life? What thrills you beyond imagination? You tell me, and then find a way to make that passion something that you can live with. And that's what you guys are doing with this show, and that's a drive that we all have in ourselves to excel in a way that we really are passionate about.
Do you believe that that's because of preconditioning as you're growing up, people putting thoughts in your mind that are not your own thoughts to bring you to a point where now you're trying to manifest things that you think you want?
I think that that's how some of the less healthy desires are formed. I also believe in a destiny that is not related to the influences of our upbringing. In other words, if you look in the cases of reincarnation, some of these children come in and they're like flying on the piano. We were actually considering watching a movie that's out yesterday called Vitus, which is about this child prodigy genius on the piano.
Oh, right.
And then he's like, he doesn't want to play the piano, right? That's the whole point of the movie. If you watch the trailer, he's like, well, and then his father's like, I know, we'll make you a pilot. You know, anything besides the piano. So you're saying to yourself, okay, there's these kids out there. I mean, I saw one of them in Japan. I was on a 3.5-week tour of Japan one time, and I just walked into this guy's house, and there's this little bitty girl on the piano, and she is on fire, and I'm just like, holy crap. And they didn't even think it was a big deal. They're like, oh, come on. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on here. This is just... But apparently over there's a lot of these kind of kids, and they didn't even think of anything special of it because she wasn't in like the absolute virtuoso top level. But I mean, I couldn't believe what she was playing, you know. So that's it's a tangential answer to your question, Andy, but the short and sweet version is that we arrange a life for ourselves, in my opinion, before we come into this incarnation. That's an esoteric viewpoint, and that means that we have already chosen who our parents are going to be. We've chosen to be born at a certain time where we have planetary alignment that is going to determine the influences that our personality has as we grow older. In fact, I was going back through readings that I did when it first started back in November 96, December of 96, and there was a line in there which I had ignored because, you know, I've got reams and reams of this stuff where it was allegedly my higher self talking, much in the same way that somebody like Esther Hicks channels Abraham, and that's become kind of the foundation of the law of attraction movement. I had the same thing happen to me starting in 1996 after a lot of work which I've described in previous audio blogs and other people's radio shows, so we don't need to go over it again, but you know, I woke up on November 10th, 96, and tuned in for the first time and paid attention to this still small voice that sounds like your imagination in the background, and just started to take dictation, write down what it was telling me. And I didn't want to understand it. I didn't make any effort to try to understand it, and that's a very, very important point. If you understand the words, then you're doing it incorrectly. So I just wrote down whatever, and the more crazy and weird it sounded, the better. I just wrote it all down. And I got done, and it was this phenomenal, sometimes very cryptic, very difficult to understand material, which started to do things like predict the future and give me guidance about my diet, which they said was, they, meaning the source, whoever was speaking, said was, you know, clearly not in alignment with what my highest goals would be. One of the first things that they wanted me to stop eating was butter and dairy products. Yeah. So I use this product called Earth Balance, which is like a butter substitute. It's really good.
Right. Yeah.
So prior to 96, you must have still had a sense. You just became more aware of it in 96. But you know, reading your biography, when you were growing up, you knew there was something going on.
Right. I mean, that's backstory that I've been criticized by some of my readers that I go into it too much. So I'm trying not to have this content be the same as other content. But the very short abstract version is that I had dreams of UFOs and so forth since I was like born, basically. 2 years old, I remember the first one. 5 years old, I had an out-of-body experience. By 7 years old, I was reading books on how to develop your ESP, strengthen your ESP. So I was like one of those little piano prodigy kids, except I was trying to do it with ESP. And, you know, I was very accelerated in my reading level, which is why I was able to read adult books at age 7. And I was disappointed because the books are saying, well, you know, you're not really going to be that good unless you start at a young enough age. And I was thinking, I should have been doing this since I was 2 years old. I'm never going to be any good. So then after age 7, by the time I was in junior high, I had researched things like body language, palm reading. I got into tarot cards. I had a little stint with the Ouija board. By the time